Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's webinar. An exciting moment today for SEGRA in that we are announcing where SEGRA will be held next year, a little bit differently from our normal announcement process, but we're delighted to have you here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kate Charters, and I'm the chair of the National Steering Committee for SEGRA, which is the acronym for Sustainable Economic Growth for Regional Australia. SEGRA is recognised as Australia's most credible independent voice on issues affecting regional Australia, and we're well into our third decade of these meetings. So we're very excited. It's not been kept under covers this year. It's known that the conference is going to be held in the city of Kalgoorlie-Boulder. Those of us who were there last time we were in the city of Kalgoorlie-Boulder have great memories of a wonderful city, a vibrant city, but its rich historical background as well makes it a place that's well worth holidaying, visiting, and certainly from our point of view, looking at the economic development strategies that are in place in the city of Kalgoorlie-Boulder, which has, as people who followed the Federation of Australia know, has a very rich history. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome John Walker to our webinar today. John is the CEO of the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder, joining in February 2016 with a brief for change. John was previously CEO of the Richmond Valley Council in New South Wales, and he also sat as the chair of the RDA Northern Rivers Board and on the Advisory Council for Northern New South Wales TAFE and on private company boards. So John brings a wealth of experience to economic development. John's career highlights include CEO and councillor roles in local government at Liverpool, Woollahra and Perth, a 10-year stint as managing director and shareholder of Thrifty Car Rental, 8 years as chairman of the ASX-listed Newstat Limited, involved in satellite business, playing a significant role as General Manager Retail Banking in delivering the cultural change for Westpac to expand their retail business across New South Wales. Being Chairman and a trustee of Sydney's Centennial Parklands, protecting upwards of $800 million in assets over 15 years, and being the inaugural Managing Director of the West Coast Eagles AFL Club. So strong community investment in your time as well, and contribution, John, for which we're grateful. So obviously from that biography, it goes without saying that John has a strong interest in economic development and regional affairs, and we're delighted to welcome the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder as the host region for SEGRA 2021. Welcome, John, and over to you.
Thanks, Kate, and it's a pleasure to be here. I listened to that biography, and life's been a wonderful journey for me, but I'm very proud to be in the role I am now, particularly given I have an elected councillor that gave me a brief for change, and that change is predicated on economic development. Most of my time is centred around that broad definition of economic development and trying to make the town tick. And we'll take you through a journey about what Kalgoorlie-Boulder is all about, and hopefully when you see the sorts of things that are happening here, you'll really want to be here and come and share with what we're doing, because I think it's quite a unique story in Australia at the moment. And for those of you in some of the states where not much is happening, you'll be blown away, I think, by what's occurring in the West Australian economy at this time. So why don't we switch to a presentation? So Katie's going to help me with this, and we'll talk a little bit about what Kalgoorlie is all about. So here come some slides. I'll talk to it, and hopefully we'll have some questions and answers as we go. So up we come, and let's start talking a little bit about what Kalgoorlie is all about. Well, it's about economic growth, and The economic growth story is really quite amazing at the present time. Kalgoorlie is the regional capital of the Goldfields Esperance region, a major contributor to the West Australian and Australian economies. Our economic zone is the second largest mineral producer region in WA after the Pilbara, and the value of mineral sales out of Kalgoorlie-Boulder alone rose by over 17% to just under $3 billion in 2019-20. Collectively, the Goldfields and the Pilbara account for about 71% of all exports for Western Australia. Our GRP for the city alone is around a touch under $4 billion annually, and for the region as a whole, it's around $14 billion, and that's quite a large concentration of production. We're not large in population terms by eastern state standards, just around 30,000 people, but we have somewhere around 95,000 square kilometres of land, which takes us right through to the South Australian border. And our problem is not economic growth and development, but we don't have any people. We currently have around 1,500 jobs available to be filled and no one to fill them. But if you look through the COVID period, the strength of our economy has been highlighted in this last 12 months by over $2 billion of investment that's been announced. So as Australia's been sleeping, we've been growing. It's continuing to accelerate, driven by the increasing price of commodities, especially gold, which reached above $2,000 US an ounce in August, right in the heart of the pandemic, and it continues to rise. The battery minerals, which are all of the batteries associated, all of the minerals associated with what will become a revolution, continue to rise in value as well, particularly around nickel. We just a week ago had an announcement for a further $600 million to be spent on the Super Pit gold mine, which is a massive hole right next to town, creating a further 700 jobs and more than 850 jobs in other gold projects close to the city in the next 12 to 18 months. You can imagine the headaches that's going to bring. The city has successfully secured Lynas Corporation to build its $500 million rare earth processing plant in Kalgoorlie. This is the first downstream processing we've had in town for quite some years. That will be about a $500 million investment and create around 600 jobs as we go forward. And that's the first time such a big investment in processing has happened since BHP Nickel West many years ago. So we're committed to driving economic development through attracting and facilitating investment, business and employment growth, residential growth, and the city chooses to be an active player in all of that. And you would have seen a couple of slides going through on gold, on the Super Pit, and on nickel, which is currently there in front of you, and nickel is making a comeback. And it'd be fair to say that it's been a very long time since nickel and gold have flown at the same time. It's usually one or another. So we're really excited about that, and throw in lithium, cobalt, and other battery minerals, and you can see that the area is really going ahead well.
John, can I just interrupt there? Where the slides aren't moving, I don't know if you can make it into full screen.
Yeah, it is in full screen.
Just give us a second, we'll move them through.
Thanks.
Are they moving yet?
No.
Okay. Just bear with us, Kate.
Thanks, John.
Should have a shiny bit of nickel on it. We're sharing the screen.
Yeah, no, that's much better now, thanks.
So you've got the nickel?
Yep, we're right. Thank you.
Let's just go back and quickly have a look at those couple we missed, if we can, Katie. So that's a bit of gold. Obviously, you know what that is. That's probably worth $100,000. And if you move to the next one, it's the Super Pit. That's about 3.5 kilometres by 1.5 kilometres in size and a depth of 600 metres. So it's a big hole. But they tell us there's gold out of 4 kilometres, so we expect to be here for a long time. And then the nickel, shiny nickel, traditionally used in stainless steel, but now very much the core element of battery minerals. So as the car revolution happens, nickel will be the king. So let's go to the next one, which is our strategic statement. And you'll see on the right there what we're about. Now, this is the entire statement for the entire strategy of the city. It's one paragraph, and it states very clearly what we're all about. And we're all about growth, integrated and broad economies, providing the region with leadership, better environment, and ensuring our organisation is always financially strong, smart, internally and externally focused, and dedicated to delivering measurable results. Now, what's that about? It was a statement I wrote after I did some research work overseas, and it's meant to tell everybody that we will be a player. The city doesn't choose to be a traditional local government focusing on the normal local government service delivery. We do that, but most of our effort, our money and our investment is around driving the economic future for the city. So where did the journey start? Around a bunch of themes that you'll see in front of you, but it's a very strategic place. Strategy forms the basis of a lot of what we do. And I have a mantra that I follow, which is strategy before structure and structure before people. So everything we do starts with a strategic position, and then we build our structures around it, and then we move to which people can deliver on what we're doing. That leads us to where we started on this particular plan for growth, which began about 3 or 4 years ago. It's built on 3 pillars: building on mining, because mining is the past and the future for this region, but we can't do a lot about that. I mean, the minerals are in the ground where they're in the ground, and the mining companies will find through private investment where to extract them. And we believe our very strong place is in diversifying our economy and enhancing the livability of the area. And collectively, that will drive the growth, wrapped around by good governance, good marketing and branding, and good engagement. You'll see just some words here for 7 of the key areas where we're driving our growth from. We needed to build the knowledge economy, and that centres around this critical mineral hub that we're developing in Kalgoorlie. Providing energy solutions. We're at the end of the line on traditional power and have a shortage. So we've done a lot of work to increase the supply, and as a result have about 70 megawatts more of power into the region than we had, plus a whole range of stimulating economic and productivity benefits around renewable energy. Supporting business and industry. We again see ourselves playing. We had an investment forum, for example, in Perth last year, which attracted nearly 400 people just to see what's happening in the city. And connecting Kalgoorlie to the world. We are a regional transport and logistics centre. We need all of the best connectivity, because a lot of their companies are in fact trading through the world. Building and developing the built environment, and you'll see some snaps soon of what we're doing in our CBD economic transformation project, and that's a really important aspect of livability. Tourism, the development and promotion of tourism has dropped off a little bit in recent times. We've now put it back on our agenda, and of course the supporting of Aboriginal economic development. And interestingly, over the last 2 years, we've focused more on Aboriginal enterprise rather than just employment. And we now have around 40 Indigenous-based companies that are working in and around the goldfields. So that's been a particular success. Let's show you now some examples of how we're delivering on this strategy, and a little reminder of what the city looks like. So first, a couple of slides on those of you who've been to Kalgoorlie, and those of you who haven't. We enjoy a beautiful facade of heritage buildings throughout the whole of Kalgoorlie's main street. There's some others. There are great hotels. We still have about 30 active hotels, and I'm pleased to say that the historic thing of Kalgoorlie with skimpies still exists. I think 29 out of 30 hotels still have our skimpies. and in the Boulder CBD, which was ravaged by an earthquake in 2010, has been rebuilt, and there's 2 blocks of superb Art Deco buildings. So we have a great history and heritage for our region as well. I just want to throw now a quick intro from Holly Phillips, who's one of my general managers, about our CBD transformation project. So here's Holly for 30 seconds.
Hi, my name's Holly Phillips. I'm General Manager City Living in the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder. It's my absolute pleasure to oversee the Kalgoorlie City Centre project on behalf of the Council. It's a major construction project, a $16 million project, all around attracting new investment, experiences and attractions into the city centre. We've staged the project in 3 phases. The first, a comprehensive community consultation process reaching some 14,000 residents. The second, a comprehensive detailed design process. And now we're looking towards awarding the construction tender for the project in December of this year, with a view to construction in early 2021.
Thanks, Holly. You need people like Holly to do community engagement, to stop entrepreneurs like me just railroading everything through and quick. So we do have those skills around us as well. That's the beautiful Kalgoorlie Town Hall. We have one in Boulder as well that historically competed. The 2 towns were separate. They came together, but in 1908, both councils rushed to get the first town hall completed, and Boulder won by about a week, I'm told, and so we have the pleasure of that history. Just a couple of the snaps around what Holly was talking about. We have a town square. We're going to renovate it, revitalise it. A lot of greenery, a lot of water, a lot of paving, a lot of al fresco. And this is a laneway that runs off our main square that's currently awful. It'll be turned into a beautiful paved al fresco area. Staging, of course, for promotion of arts and culture throughout the city. A lot of use of Indigenous art. That's the silky pear, which is Garulla, which is the symbol of Kalgoorlie, for kids to play on and showcase a lot of art. You'll see some murals in the background. That's about it. So that's a major project. When you get here next year, it'll be in full flight. You'll be able to see it emerging as we go to construction in about February. The city's also got a whole range of activity happening at the moment. Retail developments, a new $18 million Coles Kmart facility is being built at this current time, and that's much needed, but it'll help shift and transfer the way that the whole CBD works. And I just want to show you this slide. You'll see in the middle of there is a square. That is the central St Barbara Square. Everything to your left of there, all the shops running all the way down to the town hall, are owned by the city. They're our endowment. So we run them as commercial operations. And then you'll see that big building that's encircled by the red. That's currently where Coles and Kmart are housed, but it's the most ugly building in town. And you can see how, if we were to gain control of that building, we could really transform the CBD. And so that's on the market. The city's looking at buying it. If we do, it'll alter some of the work around the project. You can see that laneway, which had some of the nice photos. We'll turn the backs of our shops into retail, and we'll probably knock down a hell of a lot of that building. We're fortunate enough to get hold of it. But it'll transform Hannon Street, which is currently a very long, traditional old main street, into hopefully a bunched up CBD running from Brooklyn Street is on the left and to the right. And you'll see how it's working on this this map here. We need cross-traffic movements, we need redevelopments, we need all those developments to happen, and they're all happening at this present time. So honestly, by the time you get here next year, it'll be a mess, but it'll be great. Integrating our School of Mines, which is Curtin University, with our Arts and Cultural Precinct, and the retail changes that are happening will make the city quite vibrant. We're also at the process at the moment of enhancing our world-class golf course. Now, most people think Kalgoorlie's in the desert. Let me tell you, it is not. It is green. It is green everywhere because the city runs, we think it's Australia's largest recycled water project, and we make every bit of grass in the town that we own, the state government owns, green. And part of that is also a world-class golf course. It's the home of the West Australian PGA, and it needs a resort to go with it. We're developing a Hilton Doubletree Resort Hotel and Clubhouse. It cost of $31 million. Currently just commenced work, and again, by the time next year, it'll be very close to opening. It is a classic design that sits on a wonderful golf course. You can see there the greenery that is there, and the contrast with the red dirt, which is a feature of what we do. Let's not forget arts and culture. For those of you who clearly have a bent for that, we do. We promote arts and culture. One of the outcomes of COVID was I put $250,000 aside to develop arts and cultural activity to get the scene back and running. And we have lots of different arts and culture. And this is a mural from the wall. One of the walls in town. About 2 years ago, we developed what was called Heart Walk. And as a result of that, we have some 30 to 40 murals painted throughout the CBD of Kalgoorlie. A lot of it Indigenous art. You can see the beautiful colours that are there. And that is a tourism walk that exists as well. So you'll enjoy the arts and cultural scene that happens here as well as the economic stuff. One of the big projects we're involved in at the moment is the development of strategic industrial land. Now, despite where we live, Kalgoorlie doesn't have any spare land. All the land is either Crown land, it's mineralised, it's native title restrained. And so to actually allow the city to go and chase economic investment, we needed to find some land. And we worked through to do that, and we've been very successful in the last 3 years, so that we've now got industrial land that we can play with and go and achieve investment. So you'll see 3 lighter pink coloured bits of land in that overall purple area. The overall purple area is the land we're currently looking at for long-term growth, but the pink ones are actually now. Lot 500, which is at the top, you'll see there, is 135 hectares and is the home of Lynas Corporation. Lynas Corporation do rare earths. What are rare earths? They're the most important commodity in the battery world, in defence systems and the like. And currently 80% of the world's production is in China. And with the China-America trade war, this has become one of the most important developments that we could ever bring to the city. It changes a lot of what we do. The mine's up the road at Mount Weld. Production will happen here instead of Malaysia, where it currently happens, and that's an investment of over $500 million. Adjoining that and split by the highway, and just to the north of Lot 500, there's a railway line and all of the gas, power and other back one. Okay, back 3. Right there. No, forward one. Lot 350 you'll see there, under Lot 500, is 214 hectares of land, which we've now got demineralised and no native title on, and it's where we're focusing a lot of our efforts. I'll explain to you some of the things we're looking at going forward. And then down the bottom, Lot 101 is our next target, next to the Nickel West refinery. So all up, we've got about 700 or 800 hectares of land we've now got available, and the city is pursuing a lot of development in that. That's a quick look at the Lynas facility that takes up all 135 hectares, and that's already started construction. Just a quick process of what it's about, because downstream processing is critical for us in diversifying our economy. If we're just to be a mining town and a mining servicing town, we'll ride the booms and busts. If we can put production of downstream processing into our economic mix, we create a much more stable economy long term. This is that Lot 350 I mentioned, and you'll see there's a whole lot of letters on there, but this is an example of what in fact is happening today. So this is not pipe dream, this is real. Housed within here, we will end up with what is there shown as G and L of an intermodal transport hub. That will house the 1.8 kilometre trains that come in and out of Kalgoorlie every day, all day. And we will also have production of energy in there through a couple of projects. There's a 60 megawatt renewable energy project going to be in there. That will be signed up now. There is plans for a green hydrogen project that goes in there as well, at producing oxygen, all of which is needed locally. There is a freight centre to match the intermodal that will go in there with logistics and warehousing. And there are other proponents, including some extra land for Linus. Now, running right along G, which you probably can't see is a rail line. I'll show you on the next slide how all the rail things work. But this project we think is done. The government signed off on it, even though they were really upset with us. You can imagine the state government of Western Australia, who normally deliver the planning and strategic direction, really getting annoyed with the city because we just produced this to them, said it's all done, sign off on what you've got to sign off on, and they've gone, well, but that's the role of the state government Department of Planning and Regional Development and Jobs, and we've said we're already past you. You know, they have a block of land just down the road which has been vacant for 35 years. They're keeping it for something that might happen, but we're not sure which. Renewable energy I mentioned there. The renewable energy will be solar, it'll be wind, and will be hydrogen. So there's some pretty exciting issues that are coming there. And now the big one as well is our rail realignment project. And on the next slide, you'll see a lot of lines here. Basically, this is an aerial photo of the town. You'll see where it's marked Kalgoorlie-Boulder. The big brown bit on the right is the super pit. And you can see the scale of that compared to the town. The town has a population of 30,000 people. It's a big hole. And all those coloured lines there relate to transport hubs. Now, I'm not sure if you can point to it, Katie. The orange line is the current east-west Sydney to Perth railway line. We want to take that out, get rid of it, and that'll open up a lot of land for mineralisation where the current super pit is there. And we think that's really important. We want to replace it with the green line going through there, and then the red line going up to those two blocks of land I just mentioned, lot 500 and 350. And if we can build the intermodal there and build that new rail line, we'll take all those trains out of the main part of Kalgoorlie, and we'll create a saving of about 25 kilometres of east-west rail line, and that will be a massive investment in the city. That little loop of the red bits up here are where the two railway lines intersect. And that's a big project for us, and hopefully you'll see some of that. It's about a $150 million project. So moving on from that, I just want to now get into something which is really important to all of us, and that's water. And I'll talk a little bit about the water issues. But in the meantime, Stuart Devenish is one of my general managers. We'll just give you an overview of what we're doing at the present time.
Hello, my name is Stuart Devenish. I'm the General Manager of Infrastructure and Environment for the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder. At the moment, we're standing within one of our recycled water facilities, which is central to the water service that we offer our local community. Recycled water is critical for our community facilities, our magnificent playing fields, including a world-class golf course, but also our industry, to be able to supply water which is fit for purpose and cost effective to support industry processing. At the minute, we are undertaking substantial capital works at our treatment plant, which will see $13 million of expenditure bring online a secondary treatment train so that we can be more efficient in the way that we capture, treat and return treated wastewater back to the community and back to industry for reuse.
So Stuart's in the engineering side. He's excited about engineering projects. What I'm excited about the water project is it'll produce a hell of a lot of water for industry, and that's important from a business perspective for Kalgoorlie. That's one of the areas being upgraded at the present time. We talk about our green grass. We have green grass in Kalgoorlie everywhere, and that's all because of the water production we make. That's part of that sewage farm that Stuart mentioned. Now, before we move on, why is this important? Industry needs water. We still have the famous pipeline producing potable water to the town, but if you supply industry through the Water Corp, they're charging industry between $9 and $22 per kilolitre The city can supply it, if we've got enough of it, for about $2 per kilolitre. So you give industry a walk-up start. Currently, we produce about 1.1 gigalitres for the city. We're increasing with this project to 3.3. That extra 2 gigalitres of water each year has been sold to industry by me in the last few weeks. At $2 profit per kilolitre, that will produce $4 million of free cash to the city every year. 10-year deals have been signed. Our challenge is to make more water, and that's something that we'll be now looking at going forward. And we'll talk a little bit about the Waterbank project coming up. We obviously have an airport, 300,000 people that come through it in normal years, a lot of fly in, fly out, a lot of relationship to the mining sector. But even now, as we recover from COVID, we're back to around 70% of operation. This is critical for the city as well, because it is also a money earner. We generate about $9 million of profit out of our airport annually, and that $9 million profit plus water profits allows us the cash to invest as we move forward. One of the innovating things we're going to do out of the airport master plan is grow food. Fresh food in a place like Kalgoorlie is always hard to come by. We're going to grow vegetables, flowers, fruits, and put it into the local marketplace. So an innovative approach going forward. Kalgoorlie's always had citrus, and there's scope to go beyond that as well. Childcare in a town like Kalgoorlie, I think all of regional Australia is in short supply. We've been having our industry cry out for childcare because the problem is you can't get people back in work. You've got waiting lists, you've got no chance to get people back in the workplace if we don't increase our childcare. And the city is no different. I have about 50 of my staff that need childcare. I've probably got 10 that want to come back to work that can't. And so I took the decision that we should build our own. And that means that this facility is now underway, 129 place childcare, of which the city has reserved 50% of the places for its own staff. It's a $3 million investment, but it will also offer about 60 or 70 places for industry and general use, and will specialise in long day care, holiday care, and the things that the private sector doesn't really want to do. So we expect to have that up and running by mid-June. And you can see on this slide where the city's admin building is and where the childcare centre is. So in the future, our staff will drive in their driveway, park their car in the council car park, put their kids in childcare and come to work. They can pop over during the day to see how they're going. The organisation that's going to run it, they have a chef on duty, so everything's fresh. They have a coffee lounge for parents. And so I think in an enhancement of city's retention and attraction, it's a good investment for us going forward. You'll see now with some housing. One of the big issues we have is housing. We don't have enough of it. We've got a 0.7% vacancy factor in Kalgoorlie, which means there's no houses to rent. The city needs to invest. So we're looking at building the first unit blocks in the city to try and vary the type of housing we have. We're also going to put land on the market. The city is a developer in its own right, and we'll put subdivisions on the marketplace as well. And so housing, and I'll talk about issues shortly for the city, is a critical one at the present time. Just want to talk about these issues. What are the issues that we're facing at the moment? And one, of course, is population growth. You can't have economic growth without people. Trying to get people to live in the regions is a national problem. It's a significant problem here, and a lot of our attention is on how to grow our population to match the economy. Another issue is FBT. Regional Australia is severely disadvantaged by the fringe benefits tax, remote regional area taxes, payroll taxes, stamp duties, and we're embarking on a further campaign now to try and convince the government to remove FBT. Why is it important here? Basically, every dollar you spend on a fly-in, fly-out worker is tax deductible, and every dollar you spend on a residential worker is taxable, and that changes the dynamic. So fighting the FIFO issue, attracting a residential workforce, is one of the things the city is really big on. And we took on the mining companies last year, and whilst we didn't get a written win, we got an absolute win because every company around the city now spruiks a residential workforce. So that's important. Another issue is labour shortage. I've talked about it. It's acute. It's not just a problem. It is acute. And when you add the 3,000 or so new jobs that are coming our way, when you already have 1,500 shortfall, you have got a major problem. So that's an issue for us to advance. The price of water is big. As I said, in fact, our industry is paying between $9 and $22 a kilolitre off the pipeline, which is crazy. We need a solution. The next one is housing availability. You might be surprised at the style of housing in Kalgoorlie. We have all types. We have real old miners' cottages around Boulder. We have exclusive residential estates. We have everything in the middle. So housing availability is critical. Affordable airfares, of course, around the whole of regional Australia is one, and access to power, we've talked about before, is another. And they're all issues we're trying to fight. There's also the issue of inequity of state and federal funding. This diagram is meant to be us on the left. That's Kalgoorlie-Boulder. Unfortunately, we have Liberal members of Parliament at the state and federal level. The state means we get no funding whatsoever. We've had none for 4 years. And federally, our electorate is so big that the member is in Albany, which for anyone who knows West Australia is about 2,000 kilometres away. And so we are fighting for equitable funding that we don't currently have. Another issue is the lack of support for tourism. If you're Margaret River or Broome, you get an abundance of money thrown at you. If you're Kalgoorlie, you get none. So we're trying very hard for that as well. Another big issue for us in town is antisocial behaviour. There are Aboriginal settlements, there are people in the community that cause issues on the streets. It's an ongoing battle for us to make sure that our safe streets are there, that there's lots of issues around antisocial behaviour that we try to fight all the time. And there are a couple of members of the city's own Safer Streets Patrol. We put our own people into the streets to make sure that our shopkeepers, our shoppers feel safe when they're downtown, and that any antisocial behaviour can be moved on. So they've been one of the biggest success stories that we've had. People love them, and walking down the streets a pleasure because you know that you've got instant reaction from the city, and they work, of course, closely with police. So if anything happens, we're on top of it. Immigration is big for us. We're a multicultural society. We're built on immigration, but of course, at the moment with COVID, there is none. And our labour force is struggling as a result. Not only backpackers, but we were the first local government in West Australia to get a DAMA, a Designated Area Migration Agreement with the federal government, and that's not working. We need it to work. Education and training is big. The world-famous WA School of Mines has been in Kalgoorlie, as you see, since 1903. It's part of Curtin University. And a little-known statistic at the moment that 60% of all mining companies in Australia are being run by graduates of the Kalgoorlie School of Mines. It produces all of the quality that you need for our mining industry, but we need to enhance the university aspect. That's accommodation, Agricola College for the Mining School of Mines. But education and training is how do you make the university much more important in the city, and we're working very much on that as well. Tourism and visitation I've talked about. That is the museum. We have a branch of the West Australian Museum in town. And of course, another one of our big initiatives has been supporting local business. We spend a lot of money on buying local and supporting local business. I put another $250,000 in this year's budget to help businesses come out of COVID. And that's a really big thing for us. And the change in buying habits of companies and the community since COVID has been dramatic. The amount of local buying is certainly much bigger. I want to now start to just come to a bit of a close. Marketing the city. We know we've got a problem, so how do we go about it? Last year, we put out a Dig a Little Deeper campaign to try and get the message about FIFO, and I'll give you a quick look at it because it tells you a bit about the character of our community.
Think you know the real Kalgoorlie-Boulder? Think again. Because when you dig a little deeper, you'll discover a town that's not only rich in community, nightlife, and stunning natural beauty, but one that's quickly becoming a bustling oasis in the heart of the outback. So go on, make the move, live and work in a place rich in opportunities. it's time you discover the real Kalgoorlie-Boulder.
So that was last year's. We're about to launch this year's, which is a little different. It's got a bit more earth about it, a bit more pointed. We need people to move to Kalgoorlie-Boulder. This campaign, and they're only a stills, we'll launch our ads next week. We'll go not only in West Australia, but to Victoria. We think there's a ripe opportunity to bring some of those poor people in Victoria to a city that's vibrant and has lots of jobs. So we'll be doing a relocation campaign, all the reasons why you should come to Kalgoorlie-Boulder. So we'll spend around $250,000 to $300,000 again on this campaign to encourage people to come and live, work and play in Kalgoorlie. Finally, as a city, of course, our path to reconciliation through our phase 2 of RAP is really important, and much of what we do tries to bring our country together. So, Kate, in short, that's it. So what's our biggest challenge? We've got so much happening. Of course, the challenge is delivery. How do we deliver on that entire program? And therefore, we'd invite all of you listening to come and help us solve the problems. See what's happening in a vibrant environment. Come and help us solve the problems. And of course, SEGRA next year, 16th, 18th of November in Kalgoorlie, and we welcome you. Thank you.
Thanks very, very much, John. That was a wonderful presentation. And I guess for me, there were a couple of things that really struck me. One was that can-do strategic drive behind everything that you're doing. So it's easy to have a piecemeal approach and not integrate. And it was fabulous to hear the integration of things like childcare and how you've got that located next to chambers. The other thing I thought that was very interesting was looking at your priority areas, and many of those areas will be key elements of key elements of regional economic development, and we certainly look forward to seeing them when we come next year. One of the areas that you didn't have much time to talk about, but we'd be really interested in hearing more about, is your Indigenous Enterprise Initiative. And I don't know how far down the track that's gone, but a great shift away from jobs to enterprise. And one of the things that SEGRA has been on about a lot is that economic development needs to be about investable business plans. And yeah, so I'd be very interested if you've got some time today to talk a bit more about that. The other thing that really struck me was the downstream processes development. And I think that new industrial estate looks quite astounding. So we just had a question here with how does the Esperance interact with the proposed Trans-Australian realignment? And would the city of Kalgoorlie-Boulder pursue extension of the Northern Railway line to connect with the Newman-Pilbara?
Well, Esperance is our beach, so we have to be nice to them. We go down to the beach at Esperance. Kalgoorlie is, for those of the east, is a bit like Forbes. It's placed in a similar area where the east-west and the north-south rail lines interconnect. And so the north-south railway line starts at Leonora, which is not far enough north, and brings down minerals and other activity to the port of Esperance, because that port of Esperance is a critical area. And the intersection, obviously, of east-west happens around that industrial estate. The actual intersection point is where that industrial estate will be developed. And so we will enhance it. But Esperance, there's a limitation of the sorts of things they will take out of that port of Esperance. It needs to go north. There needs to be a further leap forward, but we're still having trouble getting road connectivity up there between Wiluna and Meekatharra, which sounds like a long way away, but a critical element of the transport movement between the Pilbara and the goldfields. And so that's something that needs to happen as well. One of the interesting things, though, Kate, about the rail line is if we are able to do the intermodal, if we're able to get the freight hub, and we can break up freight in Kalgoorlie, it's much cheaper to backhaul to Adelaide Port than anywhere else. We think that the cost of moving product back to Adelaide is 1/4 the price of moving it to the Port of Fremantle or Esperance because of some of the deals that have been done on the rail line by the government. So it's an interesting scenario.
Thanks, John. And I guess the next question is also about the train line, but it touches on tourism. And I want to ask you a couple of things there. Firstly, and this is showing my ignorance, but does the Outback Way go past Kalgoorlie-Boulder?
Yes, it does. It does. The Outback Way does. And of course, we have a prospector train which goes to Perth every day as well, once or twice. So we've got tourism connectivity. The train's very popular, just a bit slow. The road transport, the Outback Way, the Indian Pacific still goes through Kalgoorlie-Boulder, although it's a different train these days. It used to be a commuter train, it's now a tourism train, but it stops here as well.
Great. And then just from Gordon, we have a question. Gordon starts by thanking you, like I did, for a great presentation. I think that most of our listeners will have felt that. But Gordon's saying, I wanted to ask if moving the train line away from the CBD would impact the tourism spend. Do many visitors get off the train? Adelaide moved the train back into the CBD as it had been moved outside to a goods freight area for 30 years.
Yeah, no, the prospector train, which comes from Perth, will still stop in the Kalgoorlie railway station in the heart of the city. And that's the primary one that brings our tourism. The east-west train movement is almost entirely freight these days. The Indian Pacific comes through twice a week, arrives about 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and they get off and they're bussed around the city, and some of the tourism attractions open for them. So it won't damage tourism at all.
Look, John, I just want to say a little bit about tourism because the conference is on the 16th, 17th and 18th of November. That leaves the Monday and Friday, but also the weekends on either side of the conference for tourism. I've already referred to the role that Kalgoorlie-Boulder played in federation. You've talked about the the Boulder Town Hall and the incredible history that's there. But just in talking about the Outback Way, I suppose, when I was there in 2009, I went out to Menzies and I went out to Lake Ballard, which has those fabulous sculptures, and then further up towards Laverton, and I've forgotten the name of the place, is the ghost town.
Gwalia.
Pardon?
Gwalia.
Gwalia, that's it. And so I just wanted to say to people, in terms of coming to SEGRA, we've had this wonderful presentation of the economic development and the strategic plan of the council, and it's great to see a council that's so involved in driving private investment in particular into regions, but to also say that, you know, there are amazing tourism things to do in the region. If you're interested in Australian history, the old gold mining towns are amazing to drive through. Some of the oldest cemeteries in Australia are located at Coolgardie. So there's fabulous amount of tourism. So plan to stay on the shoulders and make the most of that. And we'll also be running some study tours on the last day of the conference on the 18th of November for people to see the immediate surrounds. But certainly if you're wanting to get up to Lake Ballard, Gwalia and some of those places, save a couple of days. There's so much to do in Kalgoorlie-Boulder. You won't be disappointed. Yeah. So, but that's that. Oh, hang on. There's another question come through. I was going to call it a day, but what are the plans for Kalgoorlie Airport in terms of asset growth and freight route options, domestic and international? So transport's gotten a bit of a workout.
No, good question. I mean, traditionally the airport has been a passenger airport. We have 40 or so flights from Virgin and Qantas daily, weekly. So a lot of passenger movement. There's a lot of land, and for all of the people who are interested in airports and seeing what's happened around the country over the last 2 decades and see the economic development and growth that's there, then you'll understand we're a bit underdeveloped. So our master plan, we talked about it, has plenty of provision for use of the land for both associated and non-associated use. In terms of getting freight activity, well, we'd love to be like Toowoomba, but we probably never will. But you know, the thing that is moved most by air is gold, would you believe? So they actually carry gold in the belly of the plane. So increasing the freight movement by air is partially what we've got in place, but it won't ever achieve great numbers. But using the airport, utilising the land, developing like our food bowl, like accommodation for workers and tourists, some of the land for different housing types, horse blocks, integrated, the big sheds, that sort of stuff is there. Freight and transport operations, where we pointed out on that lot where it will be, we'll get some, but the airport land will get other aspects of freight. So it's there, but it's not our prime priority at the moment. Getting the planes moving, getting people moving, regional airfare reductions will all be our priorities.
Thanks, John. Well, SEGRA 2021 is shaping up already to be a fabulous conference. As I said in my introduction, SEGRA is recognised as Australia's most credible independent voice on issues affecting regional, rural and remote Australia. It's a critical forum to ensure the voice of those who live and work in regional Australia is heard. And the conference looks at community, it looks at environment, it looks at the economic development, sees those things as interrelated, and that's certainly come across in the presentation today. By coming to Kalgoorlie-Boulder, you'll see firsthand and hear from the people who are involved in actually getting some of these things on the ground. It's also got a national conference, so it will have a national perspective on some of the broader picture issues of the economic futures for regional Australia will be on the agenda. The call for papers, if you've got an exciting story to tell, the call for papers will be out early next year, and we look forward to hearing, getting submissions for that. So if I could just wind up the webinar by thanking you, John, very, very much for that presentation. I found it very interesting, and we've just got a couple of other people thanking you in the chat box. People who found it very, very interesting as well. So I'm looking forward to coming to Kalgoorlie-Boulder next year, and I'm looking forward to a great conference there. Thank you very much for your time.